Hello to my Foundations of Algebra students from Mr. Becker. Today we're going to be doing review, and much like class, we're going to do half of the review worksheet. The other half is going to be the assignment for the week. So this week's assignment will be to do the video. Is only going to be 5 problems here. We're going to solve these equations, and then the other 5 we are going to just do on our own. So with that being started, I'm going to do the odd problems on the worksheet. If you haven't printed out the worksheet, you should do so. Otherwise, you can look up the problems. I do have the odd problems on here 1 through 9. Okay, so the quiz next week, we will have a quiz over this stuff about 8 or 10 problems, and that'll be the first quiz we've had. Uh, Going from here, and we'll see. I might add to that, and it might be part of the semester project that I think we're supposed to have. I'll know more on Monday of next week. Okay, so let's solve this one. This one, we have x squared minus 10 equals 0. So what we are going to do first, we're going to add 10 to each side. And we get x squared equals 10. Now we will take the square root of each side, and when you take the square root, you need to do a positive or negative square root. And we get x equals the square root of 10, which is 3 something. I'm going to have to grab a calculator here. 3.16. So the answer is positive or negative 3.16. All right. Number 3, now I would suggest that you pause the video, try this one on your own since it is review. I'll assume you've paused the video, unpaused it, given it your best shot. I am going to add a squared this time to each side. Now, you might say, why didn't you subtract 16? We could have, but I added a squared because now I get a positive a squared. Now, if you want to flip it around, you can. You can make it a squared equals 16. That's a 16, believe it or not. Sorry, sometimes this thing has a mind of its own. I'm going to take the square root of each side. And we get a equals positive or negative 4. Same thing, pause the video as you need to. Try number 5. This one is a little different. It's a different type of factoring now. Now this one goes back a little bit uh, to some stuff that we were doing in the very first week of the whole COVID-19 situation here. We have to factor. So we're solving by factoring. We get b times b is b squared. Now we take the 7. What multiplied gets a 7? 1 and 7. If we put a plus 1 here and a plus 7 here, notice we check those, what I always called the loops when we were back in school. That's 7b, and this is 1b, and those put together would get us positive 8b. So that's correct. But now what do? Now we take each of these, b plus 1, which is one of the factors, we set it equal to 0, and b plus 7, we set that equal to 0. We subtract 1 from each side, and one of the answers is b could be negative 1. We subtract 7 from each side, and one of the answers is b is negative 7. So that one's solving by factoring. The other one was solving by taking square roots. Okay, so this one is going to be a solve by factoring. But first, we got to get some of this stuff straightened out. It's all over the place. This is probably going to be the most difficult problem we have. I'm going to add 2x squared to each side. And we get 10x squared minus 9x equals negative 2. Now I'm going to add 2 to each side. And we get 0 equals 10x squared minus 9x plus 2. Now, this doesn't become 11x because the 2 doesn't have an x on it. So I'm going to write it up here, 10x squared minus 9x plus 2. Now, this one is going to take us back to a little bit before the break when we started this whole uh, quarantine situation, if we want to call it that. We're going to try to factor the 10, and I'm going to factor the 10 to 5x and 2x. Now, this may or may not work. This is what we call the guess and check method. And I'm going to put a negative 2 here. And the only way to get 2 is 2 times 1. So if I put a 2 here, I have to put a, oh, that isn't going to work right now. I have to put a 1 here, but a negative 1 and a negative 2, those two would get us positive 2. But now we have to check our loops here. This would be negative 10x, and this would be negative 2x, and that would be negative 12. It wouldn't get us 9, so that's not correct. So I have to change this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase these, and I'm going to switch them around. I'm going to try to put the negative 2 here and the negative 1 here. Now, this loop, when we check it, would be negative 5x, and this one would be negative 4x. Oh, that's negative 9x, so that factored, and negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2, so that one works. Now we got one more step here. So I'm running out of a little room, so I'm going to erase these. That's the factored solution. Now we take each factor. 5x minus 2 equals 0, and 2x minus 1 equals 0. We set them each equal to 0. We add 2 to each side, and 5x equals 2. We divide by 5, and x is 2 over 5. That's one of our answers, 2 over 5. Here, we add 1, and then we divide by 2. I'm going to do this one a little bit faster, and we should get x equals 1/2. Now, if you want to sure work, you sure can. Like I said, that's probably the toughest one we have to do. So this one, I think you should try to pause it, get everything to one side, make one side equal to 0, and then try to factor it like that last one. So I'm going to do this one. We're going to subtract x. We get 18 equals 9x squared minus 21x. Now I'm going to subtract 18, and I get 0 equals 9x squared minus 21x minus 18. Okay. 0 equals 9x squared minus 21x minus 18. Some students don't like the 0 on that side, so they move the 0 to this side. That's okay. It equals 0 either way, so however you want to do it. Now we're going to try to factor this one. So 9x squared, I'm going to factor it 3x and 3x. It maybe factors another way, but then the 18, we got to try to factor the 18 down. So there are two ways we could factor this one. I'm going to go with this first method, and then we'll look at the other one later. 1 times 18 and 3 times 6. Okay, so this one, if I put in a, actually, we're going to restart because we're going to make it a little bit easier on ourselves by doing it the simplest way. First of all, you should always look, is there a greatest common factor that can come out? And we can factor 3 out of here, and we would get 3x squared minus 4x minus 6. Notice all of those are divisible by 3. Sorry, computer's lagging a little bit right now. Hopefully this doesn't, sometimes the program crashes, so hopefully it doesn't. Okay, so now that 3 really doesn't do anything, but what it does is it'll make this a little bit easier to see if this is going to factor. We're not going to factor this one as 3x and x. Now, how do we get 6? 6 can be 1 times 6. It can be 2 times 3. Remember, whatever we put here gets multiplied by 3. Whatever we get here gets multiplied by x, just 1x. That one gets multiplied by 3x. So we're trying to get 4. So if we put a 6 here and a 1 here, this one, that would be 3 and 6. There's no way that's going to get us 4. So that doesn't work, but it could be flipped around. So we put a 6 here and a 1 here, that would be 18. And 1, that doesn't work. So the 6 and 1 definitely do not work. So now we try the 2 and the 3. If we put 3 here and 2 here, this would be 9x and this would be 2x, and that's not going to work. So then we flip these around and we would get these to be 2x and 3x, and that's 6 and 3, and that one doesn't work. So this one, it does not factor. So if it does not factor, then we say on this one there is no solution if it doesn't factor. All right, so I'm going to do a Zoom meeting this week. I'll put that in the announcements. Thanks for watching.